Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for One Piece chapter 667. And yeah, I'll be quite honest with you guys, I was not fucking prepared like at all in order to give you guys this pretty much review. Like from what I understand and what I heard, this chapter was not supposed to have come out until until like first Janu until like January of next year. I have no idea what the hell this particular chapter is doing on how this chapter got uploaded. I got I I have no idea, and I guess in some ways I feel dirty because of it. But yeah, it's been uploaded, I suppose. But yeah, let's uh let's go ahead and talk about it. So to start off, the conclusion to this flashback is shaping up to be how myself and many others on Twitter had predicted it would end, which is that Odin would basically recount Roger and the crew like making it to the end of the Grand Line, but not actually show it, or at least not in great detail, which really was the only way Oda could do that without spoiling the surprise for us. And having said that, there are a lot of little interesting clues dropped in this chapter, like the fact that if I understand the dialogue correctly, or at least the dialogue from like Rayleigh correctly, Joy Boy was truly the one at the center of it all. Like he was the creator of the ancient weapons, and he was the one who basically hid the One Piece on Laugh Tale. So it's showing that Roger like started, even though Roger started the pirate era, Joy Boy and Wano in many respects basically laid the foundations for it to exist, which on Wano's part, like we already knew that, but with Joy Boy, like yeah, he's like Joy Boy is pretty much at the center of a lot of of a lot of the story so far. So yeah, I can only imagine that once that pretty much at the point where we end up learning the pretty much true details of what happened at the of what happened with the Void Century, that's where everything about Joy Boy is gonna come like absolutely clean. We're gonna learn everything about him. I assume. Um, and now and and but of course, other than that, he was also the one who basically hid. Yeah, he was the one who also hid the One Piece on Laugh Tale. So and so yeah, he was just as much a part of this as he was inevitably, as we see, just as much part of this as Wanda was. Um, having said that, um, having said that, there is one little interesting thing to talk about, which is that despite only giving us small little details in order to go off of, Roger at the end of the chapter mentions that the treasure sort of tells a story. And while it doesn't tell us that what the One Piece, while it still doesn't tell us what the One Piece is, I wonder if that's a little too revealing, because in some respects we can like I said, just from that alone we can pretty much, like, I guess it isn't too revealing, but from that alone we've definitely gotten another clue, which is that the treasure, in a certain way it tells a story now. So yeah, it's another clue, and it is definitely, we can definitely say that it is definitely a lot more of a tangible treasure to be sure. But yeah, so I guess that's pretty much another clue in order to look at. Um, I I imagine the treasure is, again, has something to do with the. I imagine the treasure has something to do with with the Void Century or the Poneglyphs, if what's being said about it, if what Roger says is true. I think. Um, And and again, and like I said before, one very interesting thing that this chapter did is it gave background to the little details I never would have thought about, like the fact that Roger was still alive when Frankie began working under Tom. So basically the fact that Frankie had met Roger back in the day, it gives Frankie's backstory and his reunion slash his meeting Rayleigh for the first time even more weight now. Or when Pedro wanted to join Roger, it makes sense that he wanted to join out of admiration for Neko Mamushi and Igarashi, on top of his respect for Roger. Or from a main character stand, or from a main, for just from a character standpoint, how this chapter was drawing so many parallels to Usopp with Buggy, like, or just in that one little instance, or just I guess just in that one little moment where Buggy had made it the pretty much go to your the pretty much don't go to the islands disease. Like, I'm sure that Buggy's not the first one to use that, but Buggy's basically the one who created the origins of that, and I guess you could say that Usopp kind of stole it or something like that. I don't. It's it's yeah. So Buggy was the one who started that. So yeah, it's a fun little detail there, I guess. The other thing to talk about is on the one other fun thing I suppose to talk about is that on Roger's end, he pretty much is that on is that with Roger, he pretty much he pretty much died. He pretty much again he pretty much laughed because, as we see from the end at the end of the chapter, he was laughing because he pretty much at the time he found the One Piece, he now had not a single regret. So yeah, it's again feeding into the whole idea of uh, of basically how the of basically the act of how those with the will of D are those that pretty much oppose God. So that's another thing too, is that the treasure is more than likely some kind of like God, is something probably tied to that as well, more than likely. Um, now now let's talk about the situation with Wano in this chapter, because we pretty much see it already became a lot more industrialized, so to speak, showing how much Orochi has already taken control. And knowing that, plus Oden's little passage about what would happen 4 years later, it's definitely shaping up like next chapter is when we're going to see the events that led to his death. Especially considering we've, like I said, we've now reached the end of Roger's journey in this chapter, and ultimately you do have to think that when Kinemon was begging Oden to reclaim leadership of Wano, it almost looked like deep down he knew where pretty much fulfilling the promise that Toki would lead Oden, but Odin still did it anyway because, on top of the fact that he loved Toki and he wanted to fulfill her promise, he wanted to see Wano free of its fear for being isolated for so long. So that's another reason as to why he did it, is because he genuinely wanted Wano to be free of that. Um, the other major thing to talk about with this chapter is what we learn on Fishman Island, and how they actually had the missing poneglyph in their possession, like I guess what would it be 10 years, what all those years ago. Um, and the thing is, with this reveal, it opens up a whole new can of worms that, even like with Oda, I can kind of tell where he's going with something, but even with this, I have no clue where the hell Oda's going with this one. The only thing, and I mean the only thing I can think of right now, is that at some point after Roger's execution, Shanks came to Fishman Island and moved it somewhere where it would be hard to find. That's pretty much as far as I can think as to what had happened. Like I don't like I'm not saying that the missing poneglyph is necessarily in Shanks' possession, but I think Shanks definitely knows where it is. I think that's probably I think that's probably like I think that's probably what's being most likely what's being built up here. Um, Now talking about the prophecy with Fishman Island's destruction and whatnot is interesting at this point because honest to God, I don't believe that the supposed destruction of Fishman Island is really just is really it isn't really as like as bad as what they're all saying it is. Like I think Fishman Island's destruction is more about how Fishman Island is going to be is going to be like is going to be free from its confinement of being like just of being just an island and and isolated from the rest of the world. Like I think whatever destruction is going to befall Fishman Island is actually going to free it pretty much. Um, but yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.